Before I'd first joined your conversation, Phil explained to me that, like the gestalt shift of the young woman to the appearance of the hag, his hypothesis was a paradigm shift from the cosmos that had a beginning to a cosmos that has always existed. But I think it would help everyone if we summarize what we have discussed to make a strong link between the process cosmos and the possibility for us to change our behavior.
That's a good idea, Siggy. I'll start by making the claim that there was never any need for a Big Bang. Space is a process of quantum events, continually popping into and out of existence, to form the energy field that we know of as space. These tiny events occur extremely rapidly, and, under the influence of gravity, they organize into patterns from the smallest scale to the cosmological scale. At the smallest scale, the quantum events organize into the dynamic pattern of space, which is organized into dynamic nodes. These dynamic nodes are what we perceive as objects. These dynamic nodes exist at every scale, from smaller than quarks, which comprise atoms, to the human scale, and all the way up to the cosmological scale. The dynamic nodes all have modes, which are what we perceive as the properties of the objects. Patterns at smaller scales are constantly changing within patterns of larger scales. That is, the nodes and modes of patterns are constantly changing. Patterns at different scales change at different rates. Some change very rapidly, some persist for a very long time. Even though the patterns we perceive as ourselves and others are constantly changing, they are what we perceive as our identities. For example, a person born with blue eyes will almost certainly have blue eyes all their life.
Yes, and, as we have agreed, although a person's identity may persist, it is the constantly changing, within the pattern of identity, that enables us to change our behavior.
That's right, Astro. Our identity is defined by the patterns in our memory. And nearly all of our patterns are stored in our subconscious memory. One way to think of it is that our memory is like an iceberg. Nearly 90% of it is below the surface. That is like the subconscious mind. It is in the subconscious mind that the patterns of our identity and our behavior are stored. It is the patterns of behavior we develop in our childhood that determine who we are and how we behave as adults.
Unless we consciously change those patterns,
it seems to me, the most important thing to discover is how we make those changes. How can we change the patterns of our memories?
That's right, Astro. And I think the clue is in this quote from Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Mention of Aristotle brings me to an important point. What we are saying about changing habits is not new. After all, Aristotle lived nearly 2,400 years ago, and he realized the importance of changing habits. But we are saying something new. It is that the process cosmos makes it possible. By developing new habits, process makes it possible to create new patterns of behavior.
I think we should also point out that it is more effective to create new habits, to generate new subconscious patterns, rather than try to change old habits and patterns.
That's a very important point, Siggy. Remember our example of quitting smoking. Instead of changing the pattern of being a smoker to the pattern of being a smoker trying to quit, we suggested creating a new subconscious pattern to that of being a non-smoker. This pattern would be generated by the habit of not smoking, and by the person repeatedly telling themselves, and others, that they are a non-smoker.
That's the end of this series of videos. Thank you for watching them. We hope you enjoyed the experience and gained some benefit from it.